Hey all, welcome to Pluckers Reefs. In today's episode, we're going to revisit the Ecotech Versa and see how it's been going after 1 month of real-world application. Alright, so 1 month ago I got the, what I'd call a brand new Ecotech Versa. It did take me a few months to get my hands finally on one and get it installed. And if you may recall, we did a little unboxing and torture test of the pump just to see whether it was up to the type of use that I wanted to put it through. Now, ironically, in that scenario, I pumped it through about 25 to maybe up to 30 meters worth of 1/4 inch tubing to make sure it could handle that test, no worries at all. Did a quick look at the software and everything seemed to be running fine. Now, I did that as my real world torture test, yet ironically, the first instance that I've got to use this Ecotech Versa pump on is not 30 meters of 1/4 inch tubing yet. I've still got my leader meters doing my water change. I may replace those with the Ecotech Versas down the line, but at the moment the leader meters are working fine, so there's no need to spend money for no reason. However, I did need to replace this huge industrial diaphragm pump that I was using to feed a calcium reactor, because the thing's about this big. It had some dodgied up fittings on it to make it work with our plumbing. It was noisy as hell, and it did have issues where it would kind of lose prime and it'd get an airlock in it, and I'd have to basically prime it through and flush that air through it every, I don't know, it wasn't that often, but maybe like once a month I'd have to do that. It was a real pain in the rear every time I had to do it. And it sounded like there was a blacksmith in my fish room. You just hear ting, 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 ting. As the diaphragm moved in and out. The other thing is I bought that pump because it had a interface, a 0 to 10 volt interface, which I was going to look at doing some crazy stuff with my KH Guardian to see if I could get it to adjust the feed rate based on my alkalinity. As it turns out, I never got around to doing that. So the thing was noisy, it was big, it produced a lot of heat, it used a lot of power, and it did lose prime every now and then. So the thing wasn't working for me, so I've taken it off. I'm not gonna throw that pump away because the things are worth about 2,000 bucks. And when they're used in a scenario that they're meant to be used in, they're bulletproof. So that pump will sit aside for another day, but there's enough rambling about the old Grundfos pump. Let's talk about the Ecotech Versa. So I've put it on my big frag tank there as a calcium reactor feed pump. And I just wanted to share some of the experiences I've had with the pump over the last month, because I know the unboxing and torture test was literally 1 day's worth of usage. And I got quite a lot of questions about the noise of the pump, the software, the operation, whether it holds calibration, whether it leaks. So I wanted to address some of those things now. All right, first up, does it leak? It was one of the things I got the most comments about. I heard a lot of people had early adaptions of the pumps, or something went wrong with the first batch, as seemingly has to happen with Ecotech products. Their first batch seems to always have some teething problems, and a few people had them leaking around the 1/4 inch fitting. I have had not a single drop leak out, so I don't know whether I was lucky or whether I got the second batch or whether other people have installed them wrong. I don't believe that's the case because there's been too many people with this problem. All I can say is from my own experience, I have not had a single drop leak out of this pump. It's been immaculate, which has been fantastic. I am going to put that down, and it is only a guess, but I'm going to say it's an educated guess, that I must have got one of the second batches of pumps where they've fixed that problem, because I have seen online Ecotech have even mentioned or admitted themselves that there was a problem with the early release of the pumps, where the 1/4 inch fitting obviously wasn't fitting all that well, and you could get a little bit of leakage out there. People had to put Teflon tape around the pump or the tubing and stuff, and it just was a really bad scenario. All I can say is I have not had that problem. Now, I don't know whether the pump I got was just delivered or whatnot, but mine's been fine, okay? So there's been no dripping there. I would imagine if you were to buy a pump now, unless it's been sitting on the shelf since the first day they were released, you should be fine. There should be no leaking at all. All right, the next thing that I had the most questions about was the noise, and I see this is an ongoing thing. A lot of people talking about the noise of these pumps. First things first, they are a peristaltic pump. I mean, all pumps are mechanical in nature. They have to spin things around to make the water move. The way a peristaltic pump works is you basically have a motor which has arms attached to it with rollers. As the rollers turn around, they basically squish the tube. It's almost like when you get to the end of your toothpaste and you squish you push it along. That's how a peristaltic pump works. It just does it in a circular or a semicircular fashion where it continues to squish, and then when one roller reaches the end, the other roller reaches the top, and they keep squishing the water through. That's how they work. That's how they're able to push and pull water a long way, as opposed to an impeller, where it's basically like a little turbo wheel inside a housing. That just spins in there, and you basically reach the limits of what that impeller can push. A peristaltic pump it still has limits of course, but it can push and pull water a lot further. Now the downside to that is that it's actually external to the water. The water's within the tubing, and the motor, the armature, the rollers, and everything are external to the water. Water is often a very good sound deadener, so as soon as you take these components out of the water, you can hear them more. There's pluses to that. They're not heating the water, which is great. But yeah, the downside is they can make a little bit of noise. Now, in my personal opinion or experience, the Ecotech Versa is very, very quiet for a peristaltic pump. A lot of people are giving very unfair comparisons with them. I've seen someone compare them to a multi-$1,000 piece of medical equipment. These are a $250 pump, right? So they're not, you can't compare them against a $5,000 medical pump. That's fairly unfair. I will say that there seems to be a bit of a threshold on the amount of water you can pump through them before they get to an unbearable noise level. And by unbearable, I mean you could hear it from outside of a cabinet. If you've got the pump installed outside of a cabinet, you're going to need to have it on a very low setting if you don't want to hear it at all. Maybe around 20 mil a minute would be the maximum you could have if you don't want to hear the pump at all. Okay? If you're fine with a tiny little bit of zzz, and I mean tiny, that'll probably come up on the microphone really loud, but if you've got it outside a cabinet, you're going to want to have fairly low pumping volumes, okay? If you've got it inside a cabinet, anywhere up to about 80 or 100 mil a minute will be fine. Once you get over 100 mil a minute, you will likely hear it through a cabinet, okay? Now, again, it's not going to be like someone's got a band practice next door. It's only going to be a minute noise. But if you don't want to hear the pump at all, which is totally understandable, I get people don't want to hear pumps in their living rooms or their kitchens. Thankfully, my install is in the fish room where there is quite a lot of noise, but I still don't want to contribute to the noise. I want to keep everything as quiet as possible. And thankfully, this pump is much, much less noisy than the huge industrial bit of kit I took off it. That being said, I do have mine set to 50 mil a minute, and it is inside a cabinet, so you cannot hear it. It just pumps away silently. I have tested the threshold though of where I can go. I can get up to about 80 or 90 mil a minute without being able to hear it at all. Once I get to 100 mil a minute, I can hear it, and it just basically gets louder and louder up to that maximum of 200 mil a minute, where I would consider it to be unrealistically loud. Now, I'd be fairly certain that Ecotech would have probably put the limit at 200 mil a minute for sound reasons. I'm sure the pump could spin quicker. It would probably wear through the tubing a fair bit quicker, and it'd also make a lot more noise. So they've capped it at 200 mil a minute. Now, 200 mil a minute is a lot of water for effectively a dosing pump. If you're needing more than 200 mil a minute through it, you're probably not wanting a dosing pump. You're probably wanting a feed pump. You're wanting a return pump, a small something that can do a few thousand liters an hour. If you're going to need something that's doing more than 200 mil a minute, I mean, let's do the maths. All right, so 200 mil a minute over 60 minutes is 1,200 liters an hour. If you're needing that much water, don't use a dosing pump. Use a little return pump or a little power head, something like that. Realistically, I did originally, when it came to this video, I was thinking 100 mil a minute was probably the maximum I would push this. I'd probably bring that back to maybe 80 mil a minute, just because I know everyone's got different levels of hearing tolerance. I'm half deaf from 15 to 20 years of drag racing, so I can tolerate a little bit more noise. My pump running at 50 mil a minute, no problem whatsoever. Noise is one of those things that's subjective though, so I'll leave it up to you guys. All right, next thing, calibration. Now this is a real interesting part, because I didn't calibrate the pump when I first put it on. I literally just installed it on that frag tank because I didn't care too much about the precise amount of water going through the calcium reactor. Much like if I was to feed it off a return pump and I just have a tap to control the amount of flow going through my calcium reactor, I'd adjust the tap till I saw the drip or the stream at the level I wanted. I basically did the same with the Ecotech Versa. I didn't bother calibrating, I didn't bother measuring it. It said it was doing 50 mil a minute, and that gave me just a stream that was just under a constant stream. It would drip And I was happy with that. So I set it to that and let it go. Now, I didn't measure it then. I have measured it since then, and it is right on 50 mil a minute. Now, I could comfortably say that that means it's holding calibration and everything's hunky-dory, but that wouldn't be fair because I did not measure it at the start. I'll give it another month or two and I'll measure it again to see if we're still at 50 mil a minute. Bear in mind, if it does drop off a little bit, or even if it increases a little bit as the pump frees up or something, that's not actually a huge problem. Anything that's running 24/7 and you're expecting it to be at a milliliter per minute level of accuracy, you've got to expect a little bit of variance there, and you're gonna have to calibrate it every quarter or every 6 months at worst, if you're needing a precise installment. So far so good. It looks to be holding its level and doing really well. So I can't really answer any more on the calibration and holding calibration other than, in my instance, it looks to be running quite well. You probably could run it at a higher level, and that might push the boundaries of the pump a bit more and might throw its calibration out a bit further. Personally, there's kind of no point in testing something at its limits and then saying it's no good. It's like doing a car review and driving the car for a week at 250 kilometers an hour and then going, oh, it only lasted a week. Not a great idea. Drive it at the speeds it's meant to be driven at, and it should keep around its range. Same thing with Ecotech Versa. I'm running mine at 50 mil a minute, seems to be happy 50 mil a minute, happy days. All right, and the final thing I want to go over with this pump is the software of it. Now, software is a funny thing in this day and age. Normally, a lot of manufacturers focus hard on getting the hardware to the point they want, and they know that they can, particularly when it's a web-connected thing. Although I must point out, this is not actually web-connected. Mobius is Bluetooth only, but the app itself, you can download updates. So basically, I often find these days the companies will push a product out with fairly beta level software, knowing that they can release updates as they go. I'm gonna go out on a bit of a limb here, and Ecotech fanboys and even Ecotech, the company themselves, may not like this, but I'm gonna say that the software is a bit underdone from my experience. It looks to be very powerful. I do like the way that you can just set a constant feed very easily, which has suited my application beautifully. It's probably been one of the things holding me back from getting some more pumps to do automatic water changes. Is I was thinking, and you can, don't get me wrong, you absolutely can, that I could schedule these water changes in, and you can do that with the Ecotech software. You can set it to do water changes overnight, every night. So if I wanted it to run from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. every day, have the two pumps set to push and pull the same amount of water in and out of my tank, that would all operate just fine, okay? There's no problem with that. My criticism is the software feels a little bit clunky. I hesitate when I say that because it feels unfair. Everything you need to be able to do is there. I just don't find it's quite as intuitive as it possibly could be. I'm hoping that Ecotech release some sort of wizard or something that comes out where it says, well, you've installed a new pump, and then it says, what do you want this pump to do? Do you want it to dose chemicals? Do you want it to do water changes? Do you want it to feed a calcium reactor? And allow it to just guide you through the setup. So I'd love it if I installed a pump and it said, what do you want to do with this? And I said, auto water change. And then it goes, is this pump bringing water in or pulling water out? Although you probably don't need to do that because it should be, maybe it should ask you what other pump do you want to do in combination with that so we can push and pull at the same time. Then it should say, how much water do you want to change a day or a week or something like that? And then it should say, when do you want that water changed? Continuously, only at night, only during the day, only on weekends, whatever it may be. I feel like that's something they could incorporate into this software very, very easily and would be an absolute game changer. It would really make it easy for people to basically take these pumps out of the box, put the power to them, plug the lines in, open the software and say, yep, set it up for me, do this. I want it to do automatic water changes from 10 p.m. at night to 10 a.m. and I want to do 200 liters of water a week. You work out the maths. That is where I think the software needs to go. And I have seen, it's sort of there, like you can pick the time and you can say the amount you want to dose over the entire time rather than how many mils per minute and all that. So it's almost there. It's only a little software tweak that I think will really lift this product to the next level. And I have no insight to Ecotech's software development team, but hopefully they'll hear that feedback, and I doubt that it's just coming from me. I feel like it's something they could implement really easy and we'd see these pumps come to another level. All right, so I guess we need to get to the point where we're going to wrap up. It's been a month now that I've had the Ecotech Versa. I've seen a lot of criticism, a lot of mixed feedback for these pumps online, and it absolutely blows my mind. I cannot think of any other pump on the market for that use case that remotely comes near it for price, functionality and performance. We're talking in Australia $249 per pump for something that is Bluetooth controllable, comes with the range of features that it does on the software, which I still hope is going to improve even further. For the connections, you can plug the barbs in there if you want to run tubed, or you can just go straight to a 1/4 inch John Guest. For the performance of the pump that will push and pull water that far, is unbelievable. And yeah, okay, they can make noise if you want to push a heap. You want to push over 1,000 liters an hour through the pump. It's going to make noise. Push less than that, no problem, makes no noise. $250 a pump, nothing comes close to these, absolutely nothing. You want to set up an auto water change system, 2 of them, $500. You can set it up on your app. You don't have to reach under your cabinet. You say, I want to change this many liters a day. I want to change it between that time and that time, or continuously, whatever it may be. That's incredible. For a calcium reactor or sulfur feed pump, absolutely ridiculous, $250, and you can set how much you want to change a day. If your alkalinity or calcium's going up, alkalinity levels going up or down, you want to change the feed rate to your calcium reactor. Forget getting the little taps and just gently bumping it that way and going, oh, I went too far, and then bumping it back and then going, was that more or less than it was before? Having to get out jugs and measure it. No, just open your phone and say, I want to go an extra 10 mil a minute. Done. So good for the price. Granted, it has only been a month. The other pumps that I've been running for years, like liter meters I've been running as my auto water change in my 7 tanks for years now. I've got their criticisms on those pumps, but realistically for me to be running something for 6-ish years now, I've got to really like it, and I do really like those pumps. However, they haven't changed for like maybe 15 years. The Versa is now on the market and it looks like it's going to smash it out of the water. As far as feed pump goes, if you absolutely have to go something silent, the Kamoa continuous duty pump is out on the market and apparently is quieter. I'm going to go check it out at my local fish shop today, potentially borrow it for a review, we'll see. It costs a bit more. I think it's about $450 for one pump and has, as far as I know, has no phone connectivity. So all the adjustments are done at the unit itself. So you're talking almost double the price, less features, slightly different mechanical build. Obviously still a very good pump. So, but yeah, my point of this is, if you want to compare it against something, there really is nothing to compare the Versa against. So I think it's an incredible product. I know plenty of people disagree, that's fine. I've got lots and lots of use cases for them, so I know I'm going to be buying a lot more of them. I can't wait to get these Versas set up, and I'm really looking forward to see where the software goes in future. All right, guys, that's about all I've got time for today. I hope you enjoyed my roundup review of the Ecotech Versa. I could talk about the pump all day because I am pretty excited about it, both where it is now and where it's going to go in the future. I'm keen, and I really would love to see Ecotech come up with something that will allow the Mobius platform to connect online. I can think of nothing better than, whilst at the moment I just sit here for work, but hopefully in a few weeks or months, hopefully not years, I'll be back at my office for work, and I like to remote into my KH Guardian and see where my alkalinity levels are. And if I see them going up or down or something, I'd love to be able to access my Versa pump and change the feed rate to my calcium reactor. Or if I've got it set up as automatic water changes and I look on my webcam and I see something's not right in the tank, I'd love to say, pump some water through that sucker, let's do a big water change, all without being at home. It's not absolutely necessary, but I feel like it would be a really cool little addition. Anyway, I'll stop rambling because I could talk about these pumps all day. I hope you've enjoyed the roundup video. I know there's not a lot of new footage, but I just wanted to really share my thoughts on the pump. If you have enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions at all, pop them in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, if you have not done it as yet, please do subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification. It goes a long way to helping me in this YouTube venture, and it'll also make sure that you won't miss any of my future videos at all. Thanks, guys. Till next time, stay safe and keep reefing. Thanks. Bye.